Welcome to Alter Everything, a podcast about AI, analytics, and the future of work. I'm Joshua Burkow. A few weeks back at Inspire, our annual conference, one conversation kept coming up in the hallways and really in every session. And that was not whether AI matters. I think the debate is quite settled on that. The real question was actually about how do we move AI out of the demo, away from the pilots that everybody's doing, and into something, these business, our customers can genuinely trust and run on. And so we thought it would be great to sit down with three of our leaders that are closest to that question, who have some insights to share about those conversations and those topics that they're having in the hallways. The first one is Ben Canning, our Chief Product Officer. Second, Michelle Huff, our Chief Marketing Officer, and Derek Bates, who leads our sales team across the Americas. Three really quite different vantage points, one shared challenge. How do we turn AI's potential into something that's a trusted impact? That's what we're looking for today. Welcome, Ben. I've been given permission to pick your brain about a whole bunch of AI topics. Is you up for that?
Excellent. That sounds fun.
Good. All right. Let's start with the low, easy stuff first. Can you sort of just give background? How'd you get here?
So I started in tech, 30 years ago or so. I had a long career at Microsoft. I helped build SharePoint and Microsoft Teams. So love it or hate it, it's probably my fault. I ran product for Smartsheet for a while, and then about a year ago, I joined Alteryx.
All right. Stepping into Alteryx and knowing what you know now, was there any big surprises as far as once you came into Alteryx?
I think I knew what I was signing up for. I've always liked data. I saw this big AI disruption coming, and I wanted to work on something that had a real sort of meaningful engagement with that, not just like, hey, let's slap some AI in the product, but like this is actually going to be important to get right. And so I wanted to work on that. And so it's been really fun for the past year.
I think it's one of the fascinating things I find about you is when you came in, it was immediately obvious you're very hands-on.
Yes.
Like you do this stuff on the weekends.
Yes.
Sort of guy. Like, you get on your calls with your team of product managers and engineers, and you know exactly what they're talking about.
Yeah, I think I've always been that way. I'm kind of a builder. And so I've always been kind of down in the weeds. It's funny, like I don't have a comp sci background. I'm like a liberal arts guy. I got a philosophy degree. And so all of it has had to be sort of self-taught. And I think growing up at Microsoft in the, late 90s, early 2000s, there weren't these clear lines between, what does a product manager do? What does a dev do? Da, da, da. And so you really had to, you're expected to know it all. And I do think it's important and valuable with my team. They might not agree.
You're sort of in this AI space, which is building the plane while you're flying it. Yet you have an entire org of people that are doing the same thing. They're trying to figure out how does Claude actually work? How does Codex work? How do the models behind Gemini actually work so that when we roll out something, we're not rolling out something that we can't depend on or rely on.
Yeah.
And so do you find that's a challenge? Because I think it's a whole different ballgame when you're at home doing this stuff like you and I and others versus an entire org who's just learning it. They're just picking it up.
Yeah. It's a challenging time, I think, for all of us right now. Anytime you go through these big disruptions, I just think about, my organization, right? A bunch of product managers, a bunch of UX folks. We're also trying to figure out like, okay, so what is our job like now? What's the stuff that's just hype and it doesn't actually work that way? How would we systematize it? And especially when you look at an organization, I tend to be sort of out on the bleeding edge. I love change and chaos. And so I'm trying all sorts of new stuff. And I got other folks on my team who are super valuable, but, very detailed, very like, I want to understand exactly how this is going to work. And they are not out on the bleeding edge, trying whatever and just winging it. And so you've got to figure out, okay, how do we actually build a system that works for all of them? And I think the hype cycle on this one, we went through this with my first job as a PM was like, hey, this internet thing sounds kind of cool. Why don't you go think about it? Right. So, so we've gone through that. We went through mobile. The hype level around this one is just so immense, especially in tech, where you're just like, oh my God, you're not like doing 90% of your stuff is completely agentic. Well, you're just, light years behind and you're going to get smoked. And so it causes a lot of like churn and, and angst in folks. I do think there's a real there. And I mean, I think a lot of what I find is that it's really powerful, but it's like you have to spend a bunch of time building the scaffolding, right? It's like, we're now building a factory. Like I can have as many little worker bees as I want, but I gotta put all of the lanes in place and all of the checkpoints and keep figuring out, okay, how do I keep them on the straight and narrow? And if I do that, then it can be pretty profound what you can do, but it's not just tell them what to do and they do it.
The aha moment for me is just realizing what it really takes to produce anything decent. I'm not going to say great or anything, but something that is functional that people find useful. It's got a lot of scaffolding to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's got a lot of structure that you need to build into it because as wise as this AI thing is, like it doesn't come all packaged and beautiful. Like you have to interrogate it and beat it up and be like, no, I didn't tell you to do that. I need you to do this. But is there anything surprising that you found that just by being hands-on and playing with it that you think folks underestimate the power of it in the process of building out for product? You're finding those sort of little magic things.
I think co-work has been really fascinating to see the that sort of coding for productivity and this
Yeah.
ability to sort of automate that has been really interesting. We're talking about this a bunch in our team right now, sort of these happy experiments and happy discoveries that people will make to, okay, how do we sort of reduce this to practice? So example is, when we're releasing a new feature in the product, right? There's a whole bunch of documentation that needs to get put together, release notes and the actual web content and the training for the sellers and for customer support and all this stuff that has to sort of get pulled together. And it's not the funnest part of the job and it's hard to get right. And so one of our PMs the other day was like, "Oh, hey, we use, Jira and Confluence and stuff." And she's like, "Oh, well, I went and I just asked Rovo to like go and look at all of the stuff that we talked about and all of the tickets and like, can you make me, the rel notes and all the documentation?" And it pulled it like all together. And, it's not perfect, but like, holy crud, that saved me a whole ton of time. And so that's like this great, sort of happy accident. Everybody's like, "Oh yeah, that's cool. We should, I should do that." And so now I'm starting to think about like, okay, so what would it look like to just have it be that, every PM on my team, of which there's, whatever, 50, 60 of them, that's just
That's the norm.
standard operating procedure. Like, yeah, when we're ready to launch a feature, you run the skill and it knows to go to all of the places and figure it out and put it together. And this is the style guide that it uses and da da da. And, that'll reduce it to practice in a way that everybody can do, but we'll have to go and sort of put that scaffolding in place.
Yeah. I mean, even if it covers 75% of the ground, that the time that is needed for that, that's huge when start to do these things at scale.
As long as they have that attitude, like I find that it's great when I'm using it as I don't know, a colleague or an editor, right? Like I have a thing I want to get done and I'm like, "Hey, brainstorm this with me, get me going, pull the thing together." So, and then like, let's argue back and forth. It's much more risky when it's like, "Hey, go do it." And, I'll just hand that off. And sometimes it can be challenging there because it'll come back and it'll produce this document. I was doing compete analysis to produce this 23-page, compete tear down against all these other things. And I'm like, wow, this is really awesome. And I'm like, but I don't really want to read 23 pages. So I guess, do I just kind of assume that it's probably right? And so then you send it out and everybody's like, wow, 23 pages, that looks really polished. I bet that's right. Looks good, Ben. And I'm like, none of us have actually read, like, is it good? And it's not that people are lazy, it's just, everybody's busy. And by the same token, humans are not as reliable as you'd like them to be either, right? I mean, if I get a 23-page paper from Bryce, it's probably mostly right, but
Totally agree. What is one of the things you're looking forward to from, a hopes, dreams, aspirations in the next year? Is it purely just the scale and scope of the AI models? Is it all the little features that are coming out to make, like mobile, like co-work to make things a little bit more usable and more user friendly? If they can get this right in like the next 6 to 12 months, what do you think is?
I mean, it's interesting. I think a lot of what they're doing now is, again, sort of putting the scaffolding around it, right? Like Claude Cowork isn't amazing so much because the model is amazing. It's that they took the model and then they built a sandbox and they built all of this sort of nice experience around how do you interact with that thing that makes it work really well. And so I think we're starting to get to that second, order thing, because what you really want is I have a task that I want to perform and I'm going to go to this thing that can perform that task for me and it's going to go reach for tools. And we're seeing that with growth of MCP, and we're seeing a lot of the things we're going to talk about this week with Alteryx, where you're interacting with our app through that venue. I think that makes those, Claude and ChatGPT and Gemini into sort of the new browser. And I think we're at the sort of early phase of, like we were in the browser wars, where everybody's got kind of a different browser. There's not really a standard, and all of us are trying to figure out how do I put stuff in here. So my hope is that we get, more standardization, that we get things like MCP apps, so that we can start to bring richer experiences back into that thing, so that we can provide more value within that thing. So that's, I don't know, that's probably sort of one of the top of mind things for me.
Absolutely. Well, Ben, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, my pleasure. It was really great talking.
Absolutely. Have a wonderful week. It'll be a busy one for both of us. Look forward to talking to you more.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, man.
Take care. That was Ben Canning, our Chief Product Officer, and that's the view from product. Building AI that people can actually put their trust in. But trust doesn't really stop at technology. It has to reach the customer, and it has to be told in a way that lands for that customer. And for that, here's our Chief Marketing Officer, Michelle Huff. Michelle, how are you?
Great. Here it inspires. It can't be better, right?
Oh, what a week. What a week. I'd love if you would just humor me and just give me a little bit of background. Start where you're at now. What's your role? What are you thinking about? That sort of thing. And then maybe we get in there.
Yeah. So role, Chief Marketing Officer. So I just joined about 9 months ago from actually CMO of user testing. I did start my career in tech. So I've always been kind of in tech software in the late 90s, maybe in a different moment of digital transformation. I'm a product-minded person. So I came from a background of product marketing, product management, ran websites, to my first time CMO role at Acton, which was a marketing automation company.
People who are not in marketing, I don't think they fully appreciate the data-drivenness of a good running marketing organization.
People don't realize the types of skill sets in one marketing organization, because you have one department that is all data-driven, where I think of marketing as a function of scale. If you have this amazing customer seller, especially in the B2B, that's different, B2B versus B2C. So if you're in a B2B relationship and you have a customer engagement sales, one of the things about marketing is, how do I take that engagement and scale it, right? How do I, maybe make parts of that conversation more easily defined in a digital way? How do I actually turn and create a program out of something? And so there's a lot of things that you measure in marketing. So there's this very data-centric world. Then I have departments that are very creative, right? So here in Inspire, it's the one who's coming up with the designs and look and feel.
Absolutely.
Then I have developers, right? So we're building the website.
That's so wild.
Then I have people who can't, like, demand gen, program managers act almost more like sales reps. That's sometimes how they think about the world and building the programs. And then I have, evangelists and thought leaders and like product-minded people. So it's a very different
such
kind
a
of
blend of
variety.
people. Yeah. What what is the first thing that comes into your head when you think about running a marketing organization, that knowing you have this big wide variety of people and minds and even, I would say, goals, right? Multiple goals. And then if I were to layer the AI space in there, like how do you think about that? Is it hey, I want everybody in my org using AI in some form or fashion, or are you thinking about it strategically? How's this all come together?
In many ways, AI is technology. And so, it can be really tempting sometimes to just think tech first and, and just using it for using its sake. But really, it's ultimately like, how does it serve you and your goals? What I do find fascinating with AI, I feel like this moment does remind me of kind of the
.com stuff,
booms.
right?
And I think the parallels for me is, I remember that phase. And while it felt incredibly transformational, I think everyone had, and maybe it was fast for a lot of companies. I feel like we're going through a similar phase, but it's highly more compressed.
Yeah, it
Right?
feels exactly like
I
that.
feel like there's people who are like, well, I'll let the early adopters go first, and then we'll move forward. And I'm a large company, and it's going to take me a while. And I think with AI, I mean, you talk to so many industries and so many companies that are large where you think that they'd be slow, and they're like, nope, like they are. This is going to be something that is differentiating them. So like the speed is incredibly fast.
Right.
And the level of experimentation and learning is incredibly fast.
That's probably where that messy feeling comes in a little bit.
Oh, totally. Right. And then I feel like people are, what they don't want to have happen is because they've all seen businesses fail when another company has really used technology to their advantage, and they are the old dinosaur legacy, right? So I think everyone has this, like, we need to start experimenting and seeing how it can be used. And so what's interesting is there's this world of experimenting. And then there's the world of, well, it needs to drive value.
Absolutely.
Right. And so how do we apply it in ways of helping marketing do more marketing? There's a change element component to it too, because like you'll see different leaders and they'll throw out metrics like, I want every user to be using it. So they're looking to see, or I want, NVIDIA is famous for, I need everyone to be spending at least X amount of 250,000 in tokens, or, and so sometimes people are like, oh, well, that doesn't feel like an outcome driven metric. But I do, like when you think about it as a change management
behavior, right?
And, you see it internally, right? Like sometimes you're talking about the, when you're kind of in this trying to change an organization and how you work, there people are going to figure things out at different timing. And there's this aha moment where something's conceptual versus suddenly you're like, I see it, right? And so, if you're trying to get everyone there, I get the metrics where you're like, well, if I'm trying to get everyone to start experimenting, the first metric is, are you actually using it?
Absolutely.
And the next one is like, okay, but did you dabble for 2 seconds or did you actually try, right? Like,
have you been continuously?
Yeah, but like once you're through these different humps, like it does need to be driving business impact and value. And that's where I think a lot of the tension will start kind of coming. It's like, okay, you're using it, but like, why we can't just be spending this? For fun's sake.
I think this is funny. I haven't found many who have had that experience and haven't absolutely revolutionized what they're doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they have that oh crap moment. And the oh crap moment is specifically the moment when you realize that AI is as powerful or more powerful than you thought it was.
A lot of times AI is changing how we automate things. Right? It usually boils down to automation. And I think Alteryx has that too. And so I remember this last one where someone on the team was like, I actually applied it to something that I do, and it's fundamentally changed how I look at work. She's like, like I won't look at these tasks the same way ever again. I fundamentally believe, especially in marketing, but in all jobs, like if you believe your job is owning a set of tasks, it's a very limiting way to think about your job.
Absolutely.
My mind, we all own a series of problems, right? And at the top, they're like, Michelle, like you owned this, I'm like, and I pass it down. I'm like, these sets of problems are owned by these people, right? And so if you own a set of problems that you're trying to solve,
Yeah.
we always have lots of problems, and there's many
Sure.
different ways to solve it. And the more things you can automate and more tasks frees you up to solve problems in more different and creative ways. And so,
bigger, better, faster.
yeah. And so I think
Love
if all of these things are helping you 100x
Smart.
reimagine how you're doing things,
Yeah.
it really frees up a different way of trying to solve problems, and
Absolutely.
especially in the land of marketing.
This is kudos to you very specifically that you've been really great about, and this is for the marketing leaders out there, encouraging your folks to share.
Yeah.
They're going out, they're solving some problem, they're having their aha moment, and then you've fostered this environment where they get to come and present. There's folks who've been doing this for 15 years. There's folks that have never touched AI yet, and that whole spectrum gets to see the art of the possible right there.
Well, like, I'm a just inherently really curious person, and I
Yeah.
love learning, right?
Sure.
Always more to learn.
There's always
and
another
so there's
book on the
always
shelf.
things to
Yeah.
share, and you can always learn from anyone. You'll never reach some part in your career where you're like, huh, I've got it all figured out and
Yeah.
know it all, right? And so,
Absolutely.
you can learn from everyone. And so
Yeah.
I'm a big
Love
believer
it.
in sharing.
Good. Michelle, thank you so much for joining the podcast. I
Yeah,
appreciate
thanks for
having you
having
here.
me.
Hopefully you have a beautiful rest of the week.
I think I will. It's
Right.
sunny Florida.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was Michelle's point of view on what marketing is really asking for. The real test happens when we're in front of a customer. Derek Bates, who leads our sales teams across the Americas, he gets to see adoption up close, where it clicks, where it stalls, and what separates the two. Here's Derek's point of view. I'm with a really good friend of mine, Derek Bates.
Thanks
Derek,
for
how
having
you
me, Josh.
doing, bud?
I am fantastic. How are
Good,
you? Yeah,
good.
having a blast this week.
That's awesome. Can you say hi, introduce yourself for the
Sure.
for the podcast?
So I am the head of the Americas here at Alteryx.
Okay.
I've been in this role for almost a year now.
Yes,
Kind of
congrats.
amazing.
Yep.
Gray hairs have not been added to. They've actually been existing the way that they are. Yeah, it's been pretty cool after, kind of now 4.5 years here at Alteryx, which
Time
is
flies when you're
pretty
having fun.
amazing. Yeah, I know we were asking earlier, like where I came from and all that stuff, but
Please.
it was after a 15-year stint at Oracle.
That's wild.
Yeah.
For the sales folks and coming up through the ranks, what's the hardest or the best time savings technique you can say for someone getting into tech for the first time? What is it that you would guide them on?
Interesting. On tech, you do not need to be perfect with the technology.
Yeah.
You're
not a developer.
Right. You'll never sound, I talk with our team about it today, like you're never going to sound like Ben.
That's right.
You're never going to sound like
Nor
Andy.
do you have to.
Nor do you have to. You have the folks around you that are there to support you. You obviously have to understand what we do, some of the nuances, some of the terminology to make sure that you're relevant as what you're talking about.
Yep.
And also, like, you work for a company, you want to believe in the product. You want to believe in it. So you're going to understand the technology that way. But it's really about listening to the customer and kind of understanding from them, hey, this is the problem that we're trying to solve. Figuring out like, oh, hey, I hear a couple of what I call pain grenades, some pain that exists at your organization. Yeah, I think we can help you with that. I'm not going to go and try to explain the bits and bytes of how we do it.
Sure.
But we can help. Let me bring in the right people.
Find the right people.
Yeah, let me bring in Joshua to talk to you a little bit about, what he's done and see if we can get you there. I think there was a little bit of a period where the Alteryx sales team kind of got used to like, hey, our customers just love us. They kind of need us. Hey, let me be an order taker and a supplier. Now in this agentic AI world that we're in, the intelligence era, we really need to make sure that we're having discussions with folks and letting them know, like, I don't even want to sell you anything. Actually, you're already investing with us today. Let me show you ways to just maximize the value, especially with this major kind of AI strategy and initiative that you have going on. Yeah. So, the team is really kind of grasping that. Because to be honest, that's way more fun than selling.
I bet. Let's jump into that. You sort of had perfect segue, but I'd love to what does Derek Bates think about AI at home or in the day-to-day? Not necessarily connected to Alteryx, but like, where's your head at when it comes to this?
So I will say me personally, I'm in that like second phase of curiosity.
Sure.
Okay. Like everybody else, I kind of started with, hey, rewrite me an email,
Sure.
and then it was like, oh, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Hey, create me a slide deck for this. Right. And boom,
So
all of a sudden
surprises and-
you're really, really cool. And then just kind of, it's like this iteration after
Yeah.
iteration. And I say it all the time, like, man, I wish I was an AE today
Oh,
in comparison to kind of what we had to do 20 years ago.
sure.
Give an internal example here, talking with a leader of one of our groups, and he was like, hey, we really are trying to potentially their pain points could be, what questions we should be asking to kind of uncover that. I took that output from chat. I then ran it through, we work with Present AI,
Yep.
and created a beautiful battle card
Amazing.
for 25 different Alteryx use cases.
That's
High
awesome.
yield, like, hey, these are tried and true,
Yep.
Excel spreadsheet type stuff, right?
Yeah,
But like, you want to get started, and it was done within a half hour.
Nuts. Yeah.
Where in the past, just to build that battle card
Dear
content
Lord, yeah.
would have taken
Months.
forever.
Yeah.
And you would have gone over the content a million times, all of those things.
And
Like,
by that time, it's already changed.
it's already changed. Like, you missed time. Like, so from a sales standpoint, to me, it's accelerated our ability to get, fairly good research as we're reaching out that are just, again, to me, it's really, really exciting.
Absolutely. You show up to work and you're talking to customers. Like, how does the dynamic change? Where does the conversations go to when you're talking AI with a customer?
Yeah. I mean, the conversations I'll use just this week, the past 24 hours.
Perfect.
Everything is AI focused. The number one thing that everybody wanted to talk about is AI.
Yep.
And it's funny because coming from, say, Oracle, right? I was part of that data warehouse, movement. And everybody was like, we got to build our data warehouse and we need a data lake and we need to get all of our data in one spot. And now everybody's like, well, we want to use AI to operate better, more efficient, to start running our business on AI. Exactly. We have all of this data sitting in these big data warehouses or wherever, and we want to get it to an outcome that's just delivered through an LLM.
That's right.
Right.
Yep.
So, man, Alteryx fits really, really well.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
What are you hoping to see in the next, say, this week going on the next couple months? Right?
Can't say it's necessarily this week, but the Alteryx One MCP to me that's
a game changer.
That is the stuff that, like, again, I think everybody is moving to this era where they want to work from an LLM interface.
That's right.
Right.
Yep.
So being able to connect it to the MCP server, knowing that you have governed and auditable workflows behind the scenes working for you is just awesome. Because now you can do your business right there. I think our partnerships with the CDPs is huge. The stuff that we're obviously doing with Google is fantastic. Some of the other additions that are going to be coming out very soon, little sneak peek there, I think is really, really exciting to kind of open up across the marketplace. Again, the overall adoption of Alteryx One. And I know it's kind of a little late to say, like, hey, it's been 12 months, but we're now really starting to see that snowball effect, right? And folks getting on Alteryx One, the new modern interface around of Designer and the Alteryx One app is super cool. But yeah, I mean, I'm really kind of excited to see, hey, over the next 6 months, our customers are going to kind of understand that they have this massively powerful engine already sitting with them and taking advantage of that and watching them actually grow and expand that way. Or, hey, are we still going to be a big part of just your business users and how they're, getting the jobs done today?
I think that's the fun part is that a lot of customers just not until they get their hands on it and they try something new, they'll surprise us.
Right.
They've always done this where they take the product to places that we didn't think were possible. And they wow us.
Yeah, there's such a parallel actually between, I think, where folks are in AI adoption in Alteryx, right? So I use the AI analogy all the time about Alteryx where, hey, you start off, you're like, rewrite me the email, and you grow and you're like, oh, let me try this. Let me try this. isn't Alteryx the same way? It's
Pretty
like, hey,
much.
I started with, I blended some Excel spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Oh, that was pretty cool. That saved some time.
Yeah, that was easy.
What happens if I do this?
That's right.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Next thing you know, and
building workflows on the weekend.
right. And we talk about, I won't name the client, but the client a few years ago that found the $1 billion tariff mistake.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, man, who's going to find the next $1 billion workflow?
That's right.
Like, that's what's really cool.
It's really wild.
Yeah.
Derek, thank you so much.
Oh, this was
I
awesome,
hope you
Josh.
have an amazing week.
Yeah, you too.
I look forward to chatting with you more.
Absolutely. I hope everybody out there has an amazing week and, keep looking into what Alteryx is doing. We got some good stuff going on.
Love it. Thank you. You saw 3 leaders with 3 different vantage points, 3 different perspectives. Hopefully you heard there's one thread running through all of it. The organizations that are pulling ahead aren't the ones with the flashiest demos. They're the ones that are building trust, and they're doing it on purpose. They're doing it in the product, they're doing it in the message, and they're doing it out in the field. Thank you, Ben, Michelle, and Derek, for your perspectives and pulling back the curtain on how you're thinking about it. If this was useful, follow Alter Everything wherever you listen. We'll see you on the next podcast.